This will be World Dressage Federation Foundation Level Test 3, written by Erin O'Reilly on Willoughby. A. Enter at the working walk. Proceed down center line to C without halting. C. Track to the left. H, X, F, change rein, lengthening the horse's stride and allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward. F to K, working walk. K to E, shoulder 4 between K and E. E to M, change the rein. M to H, continue working walk to H. H to E, shoulder 4 between H and E. E to F, change rein. F to K, continue working walk to K. K to E, between K and E, prepare to trot. Between E and H, working trot, continue to M. M to F, lengthen the stride. F to A, working trot. After A, turn right on quarter line. Quarter line, leg yield left from the quarter line, arriving at the rail after E. E to H, between E and H, circle right 20 meters twice, allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward on the first circle, then developing a working trot on the second. E to H, between E and H, continue working trot to M. MXK, change rein, lengthening stride in the trot. K to A, balance the horse after lengthening. After A, turn left onto quarter line. Quarter line, leg yield from the quarter line, right, arriving at the rail after B. B to M. Between B and M, circle left 20 meters twice, allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward on the first circle, then developing working trot on the second. B to M. Between B and M, continue working trot to H. HXF, lengthen the stride in the trot, in the working trot. F to K, between F and K, transition to walk. K to X, working walk along diagonal. X down the center line between X and G, halt and salute. Dismount, stand quietly for a moment. You are a warrior horse. Take the reins over the horse's head, run up the stirrups, and leave the arena, leading the horse at its shoulder. I want to thank Erin once again for being our test rider here for so many of these rides. She's doing a great job. So now let's go through and analyze what we saw here today before we then score the test. So starting off, just what I see in the walk, there's not quite as much lift in this horse's back end. Is a little stiffer looking today, not quite stepping up as nicely and consistently as we've seen him before, so that's going to affect his score a little bit. Fairly straight coming down the center line, a little crooked at times. No resistance, so that's a good thing. Horse is relaxed about it all. Not a bad first stretch, but notice the back end. The horse should, as it stretched, begin to step over and overreach. So there wasn't enough lengthening in that stretch down. The horse kind of losing its back end. You see how it's kind of moving less behind, if you will. So that would have been a fault there. Comes back into a fairly good working walk, but once again, still a little stiff. Watch the hind legs. So he's moving kind of a little stiffly. There's not much bend in the hocks there. And a little less consistent than we've seen this horse before. Now in the shoulder four, not a bad shoulder four here. Would have liked to have seen a few more steps of that. And here changing on the diagonal. Once again, I look at how the back end is moving today. Sometimes the head wants to come up a little bit. So not quite as fluent as I've seen this horse before in the back end, nor what I would like to see. So again, see how she starts to bring the reins up, how the horse starts to stiffen behind a little bit. So now in this shoulder four, never really got it going there. So in this particular case, there wasn't much that happened. She never really got the shoulder off and it wasn't consistent. Same thing here, looking at the back legs. Notice how the horse kind of loses its back end from time to time. So he's not staying consistently engaged. So again, notice through the turn here, the horse kind of loses its back end out from underneath it for a moment. Now she's preparing for the trot transition. Pretty good preparation there. The horse is coming up under her a little bit better than it was before. Not a great upwards transition, a little slow to get started, wanting to come off the bit a little bit. Not enough lift in the trot for a really good working trot. First lengthening here, nothing really happening in the lengthening. Once again, the hind end isn't coming deep enough under the body. A little bit of resistance in that turn there in the corner. Not a bad leg yield, but a little bit hesitant, not as much stuff under the body as I would like to see. First circle here stumbles a bit. Not really getting enough swing in this stretch. You can see how the horse is kind of on its forehand a bit here today, not giving us as much lift as we've seen before. So never really got a good stretch going on that circle, comes back up. Though the working trot is a little better even after only that little bit of stretch, which is of course why we have these, but you can still see a little bit resistance. She's having to work a little hard to get his back end working on this particular day. And you can see him sort of coming up, trying to come up out of the bridle, kind of losing his back. Same thing here, a little better lengthening here, but still not really much. The neck should, when the horse lengthens, the neck should come forward and get a little bit longer as we allow at this level. A lengthened stride means the horse lengthens its whole frame, which is very different from a medium trot or a collected trot. A little better in that leg yield, but once again, the horse looks a little bit unsteady as he went, kind of twisted his neck a little bit, trying to find a comfortable spot there. Circle here, once again, the horse doesn't just go right into the stretch, a little hesitant to find the stretch today, wanting to be a little bit too much on the forehand there. So remember, our goal in these stretches, the horse should keep the same frame and stay lifted through the withers. In this particular case, is on this day, this horse kind of fell onto his forehand in this. And you can see he's kind of stumbling around a little bit because he's not got enough push up into his back for a really good working trot. Once again, a little resistive, a little heavy through those corners. Losing engagement. Watch how the hindquarters are kind of falling out behind the horse. Now he's getting a little bit irregular. This downward transition is late. Should be at A, basically in between the letters, but losing engagement in the downwards transition. Though better in the walk right there. But he was very nice and relaxed, so we have to give him that. But on this particular day, just never got quite to where he needed to be, though that was quite a nice halt and salute. And he stands beautifully quietly while she dismounts. And this is just what we would like to see. Thank you again, Erin. Now in a moment here, we're going to score this test. This will be World Dressage Federation Foundation Level Test 3, written by Erin O'Reilly on Willoughby. A, enter at the working walk, proceed down center line to C without halting. Walk a little hesitant. C, track to the left. Improves as it goes. 4. H, X, F, change rein, lengthening the horse's stride and allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward. Hesitant on the turn. 4. Not enough stretch, not enough overreach in the stretch, doesn't lengthen the stride. 2. K to E, shoulder 4 between K and E. Working walk lacks engagement. 4. E to M, change the rein. Could have had a few more steps in the leg yield. Walk to H. 4. Not consistently engaged in the working walk. Shoulder 4 between H and E. 3. E to F, change rein. F to K, continue working walk to K. Not enough shoulder 4, 2. Better working walk 4. K to E, between K and E, prepare to trot. Between E and H, working trot, continue to M. Better working walk in the preparation to trot. 5. Transition hesitant and the horse wants to
M
disengage.
to F,
Lengthen
3.
the stride. F to A, working trot. After A, turn right on quarter line. Not enough lengthening and horse disengaging to the back. 3. Quarter line. Leg yield left from the quarter line, arriving at the rail after E. E to H, between
Leg
E and
yield
H, circle right 20 meters twice, allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward on the first circle, then developing a working trot on the second. Stumbling, gets too much on the forehand, loses engagement. Three, E to H. Between E and H, continue working trot to M. MXK, change rein, lengthening stride in the trot. 3 on that last working trot. K to A, balance the horse after lengthening. After A, turn left onto quarter line. Not enough lengthening. 3. Quarter line, leg yield from the quarter line, right, arriving at the rail after B. B to M. Between B and M, circle left 20 meters twice, allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward. Last leg yield was a 3, then developing working trot on the second. Stumbling a bit. Once again, not enough stretch. Falling onto the forehand too much in the stretch. 3. B to M. Between B and M, continue working trot to H. HXF, working trot is disengaging. 3 in the trot, in the working trot. No real lengthening.
F to
Horse
K,
gets
between
inconsistent
F and
behind.
K,
2. Transition to walk. K to X, working walk along diagonal. Late transition and rather stiff. 2. X down the center line between X and G, halt and salute. Better working walk. 4. Dismount, stand quietly for a moment. You may reward your horse. Take the reins over the horse's head, run up the stirrups, and leave the arena, leading the horse at its shoulder. 5 on the halt. Stands very nicely, quiet, attentive. 7. Now let's take a look at our collective marks for this horse. Horse's correct level of physical development for the level entered. Now we have to take into consideration how the horse performs, and as if we have never seen this horse perform before or know anything about it. So every judge should try to look at every test as if they've never seen them before. So once again, the fact that this horse loses engagement quite a lot throughout this entire test, I can only assume that isn't in my mind as a judge that the physical development is not quite enough to keep that consistent, or at least not on this particular day. So we're going to give that a little less than a 5. We're going to give it a 4 there. Harmony between horse and rider, pretty good. We didn't see any kind of real arguments or anything. She was having to work him a little hard at times. It looked like she just wasn't getting much out of him today. But we never saw any glaring errors or fights or any such a thing as that. So 4 on that one. Rider's correct level of physical development for the level entered. She's quite good. Her seat is quite good. Seems to understand she's able to hold her posture in the correct position. Her legs are underneath her. So she's able to hold herself in the right form on the back of the horse quite well. So 5 there. Artistic impression. Once again, I emphasize that the artistic impression is very much affected by the consistency of the ride more than any single thing. Yes, there's the pretty picture that one makes on the back of the horse, but really that's a static thing. So we have to look at the movement and take all that in consideration. So every time the horse loses engagement, anything that causes to like listening to music, if you hear it suddenly go out of tune, out of time, all those things distract us from the performance, and we saw quite a bit of that in this. So we're going to give her a 3 on the artistic impression. Now remember, these artistic impressions are also coefficients of 2, as are the stretches, so those are very important. So in a moment here, I will have the score for this. The score rather, for Erin and Willoughby here today on this test was 35%. So lots to work on here. You can see how that consistency is so much a part of this, consistently engaged over its back. And this is a good one to have watched if you've watched her previous test. Go back and look at, what a nice active walk, how the horse really stayed up and stayed lifted in the withers throughout the test, and we had a really active back end. And on this particular day, for whatever reason, now Erin rides this horse once a week, but once again, no excuses for people. It's just, we have to look at each test individual. But she's going to ride these tests every day, or that is once a week, until we push each test. She can get, break into the 70% at least on each test, so you can all see her go through the process and make those changes necessary to bring this horse up into a more winning score, you might say. So 35% on this one today. Great work, Erin. We really appreciate you being our guinea pig for all this and all of your hard work that you've done. Great job. Thank you, everyone, and I hope to see more of your videos sent in here before too long. This is Will Faber from Art to Ride.